translate the haq as truth. You can also translate the haq as certainty. Asa is for us to realize that if our tawbah is really sincere, if we really believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do what the ayah will tell us. So this asa does not apply to Rabb. It's asa for us. First is an yukaffira ankum sayyi'atikum. Now the word yukaffira ankum sayyi'atikum will be, He will wipe away your sins. That's how it's usually understood and translated. But it's a different meaning actually, because it is kaffa yukaffiru. It has a heightened sense in it as well, mubalagha as well, and gradual as well. The word sayyi'ah, if you look at it, it doesn't say that I just made a mistake. I was overcome by some temptation. The sayyi'ah actually refers to a nature as well, our evil nature, our evil soul. And we know from the science of genetics that there are some chromosomal abnormalities, that a person is genetically predisposed to be a criminal. He does something wrong. And it's very difficult to change the nature. And again, this will tie with the concept of collective tawbah. If you look at it, and the psychiatrists know it very well, it's difficult to give up drinking alcohol if you're doing it on your own. But if you do it in the form of a group therapy, it's much better than individual therapy. Because you have somebody supporting. You know who else has done the same thing as you have done. So when Allah says, Tubu, collectively make tawbah, we are all together here. We are all supporting each other, watching each other's back. There will be some in the community who will be weak, some will be strong. The strong have to support the weak. The second part that Allah is saying is that He will change your nature. If your tawbah is sincere, He will take away your ability to do the sin again. It's not just that He will forgive your sin. No, because you will make the same mistake again. That's what happens to the alcoholic. Oh, I quit for 5 days, I quit for 10 days, I quit for 2 months, then I go back to it. It's not working. But here, if the tawbah is collective and sincere, then have a faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will change your nature, that you are not able to do the same sin again. Something will come to you. It will protect you. The second, وَيُدْخِلَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. He will enter you into a paradise through which rivers flow. And the concept here is that if somebody has slept me, if I am really great, I may forgive him. But it's hard for me to forget it. I will never invite him to my house. I'm very weak. If you have sinned against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's one thing to forgive you for that. But it's a different thing to invite you to your own home and say, live in my home. I'm giving you a mansion. I'm giving you servants. I'm giving you wives. Ask for anything and it will be given to you. Because you made a sin against me, but then you repented to me. That's the greatness, that's the magnanimity of Al-Rahman, Al-Wahhab, Al-Mannan. He does this thing. And this, He wants us, He's telling us as well. If somebody has wronged against you, do what you would want Allah to do. There is a beautiful hadith, actually it's more common among the Sufiya. I think the hadith scholars might consider it weak, but it is تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, which means develop your character along the lines of the akhlaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what we learn from the Quran, what Allah does when somebody makes sin. He is willing to forgive 70 times a day throughout your age. And not only that, He is willing to enter you into His Jannah. Only He has the privilege to do that. So that's something for us to learn, that if somebody has done something wrong to us, we should be prepared to forgive and to forget. It's difficult, but work on it. Now, what I want to talk about is not just the individual tawbah. As I mentioned, my idea today is to take it to a different level of a collective tawbah. And this is to realize what went wrong 800 years ago to the Muslim Ummah. In fact, it goes even beyond that. And I'll give you an example that if we are traveling on a ship and it's not doing well, it's about to sink, you cannot simply go to the captain and say, are you really qualified for this job? What's your education qualification? Do you think you cannot do this job? He's not going to tell you that, no, fire me, get somebody else. You need to look at the hardware, the software, the machinery, the computer programming of the ship, but you also need to look at who is captaining the ship. And sometimes it is difficult for us to be very objective. We do not have the eyes to see ourselves as others see us. It's difficult for a Muslim to acknowledge that he's wrong. It is difficult for a Muslim who is a Hanafi to think that Hanafi madhab is wrong, or for a Shafi'i to think Shafi'i madhab is wrong. It's very difficult. We cannot be absolutely objective. And sometimes we have to depend upon others to tell us where did we go wrong. And we have to turn to the Orientalists, some of whom have actually studied Islam in much more detail than we have done, and much more objectively, because we haven't done that. And I will encourage you to read two books, not written by Muslims, but not every Orientalist is a Muslim enemy. You can divide them into different categories. There are those who have an agenda to hurt Islam and the Muslims, and we know some of them. There are those who simply looking for truth, like Karen Armstrong. She used to be a nun, she's no longer a nun. She's close to becoming a Muslim. Maybe she will become a Muslim one day. But she has studied every religion, including the Buddhism. She's looking for truth. And if you read her books, sometimes I learn more from her books than similar books written by Muslim scholars. Please forgive me for saying this thing, but that's the truth. And then there are third, who simply study Islam as an academic discipline, like John Esposito. He has done great studies. He may or may not become a Muslim, but we may benefit from it. Andrew Rippon in Canada, phenomenal work on Quranic studies. Some of you don't even know the names of these people and what work they have done, because we are programmed to consider that every non-Muslim is our enemy. A few years ago, I downloaded a lecture on how did the Muslims lose their Spain? How did we lose our empire? For the first 5 or 10 minutes, that scholar kept slamming every non-Muslim. I simply deleted that file. There was no point in listening to him further. If his starting point is that it's not my fault, it's the fault of the non-Muslims that we lost Spain, we will never be objective. We will never find out the real reason why we lost Spain, why we lost our glory. So the two books that I am talking to you about, one is written by Bernard Lewis, which the title, very apt title, is What Went Wrong. The second book, more recently, written by Robert Riley, and it has a long name. He says, The Closing of the Muslim Mind, How Intellectual Suicide Created the Modern Islamist Crisis. We really need to benefit from those things, because somebody, as a total outsider, is looking at the Muslim history of 1400 years and trying to tell us what happened to the Muslims. I think we need to do that. In the second part of this khutbah, I'll talk about two of the points that I want to highlight from these words, which is what we need to do. But let's take a look at some of the ahadith about Tawbah. The first hadith is from Abu Musa radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He mentions, Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Qala inna Allah azza wa jal, yabsutu yadahu bil-layli liyatuba masih al-nahar, wa yabsutu yadahu bil-nahari liyatuba masih al-layl, hatta tatlaw ash-shamsu min maghribiha, rawahu Muslim wa Nasa'i al-hadith sahih. That the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed, when the word inna, anna, they come in the Quran, or laqad, it means there is no doubt. We should not be doubting them. In fact, I won't mention that ayah, but in explaining one of the ayah, Imam al-Qurtubi mentioned that even doubting becomes a kufr. Because when Allah says, no doubt, who are we to doubt it? So the Prophet ﷺ said that indeed, no doubt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spreads out his hand at night so that he will forgive a person who was doing sins during the day. And similarly at night as well, until the sun rises from the west. And this phrase, the sun rising from the west, comes in other ahadith as well. What does it actually mean? Does it mean a physical phenomenon where the axis and the rotation of the earth is changed so that the east becomes the west and the west becomes the east? Yeah, that may happen. Does it also mean that a time will come when the east will lose all its glory and the sun will be shining brightly on the west? That could mean as well. The other is that maybe the Islamic revival will start from the west, not from the east. You can take your pick. The next hadith is from Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Hadith is narrated by Ibn Majah by Asnad Jayyid, good sanad. He says, Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam qal, Lo akhtatum hatta tablugha as-sama'a, thumma tubtum lataballahu alaykum. That if you made mistakes so much that the magnitude of those mistakes reaches up to the skies and then you ask Allah for forgiveness, He will turn towards you. The reason I'm choosing these ahadith, there are many more ahadith, but if you look at it, that collectively the sins of this ummah have crossed the boundaries of the universe probably. But still we should not lose hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we need is a collective tawbah nasuha. We'll talk about that inshallah a little bit more. Anas radiyallahu ta'ala mentions, Anna Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala, kullu ibn Adam khatta. The Prophet is using a word which falls into the category of fa'al, habitual, professional people who make mistakes. That every son of Adam is a habitual, is a person who makes mistakes habitually. وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. This is the beauty and greatness of our religion. That even if you say this guy is 99.9% black, Islam says 0.1% is goodness in it. Capitalize on the goodness. So the best of those who habitually mistakes are still those who turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our take-home lesson from this hadith would be what? Do not give up on anybody. Do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on anybody. Do not just write somebody off. Oh, this is a kafir, Allah will always put him in hellfire. Maybe there is something good in it. Maybe he will become a Muslim. Have we tried? It's our fault if we have not tried. Abdullah bin Masud radiyallahu ta'ala mentions that Anna Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala at-taibu min al-zambi kamal la zamba lahu. A person who makes tawbah is as if he has never made a sin. So don't hold anybody responsible for the rest of their life if they made one minor mistake. Think about how many mistakes you have made. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولذكر الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. So, a couple of points about where did we go wrong and how do we correct it. 2 points which have been mentioned in some of those books and some of the studies. One is the closing of the door of ijtihad. That after the 4 great madahib, people said there is no mujtahid al-mutlaq. There are different categories of ijtihad and mujtahid. So they said nobody is now at the same level as the 4 great imams. Not even Imam Bukhari, not Imam Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, who actually claimed that he was a mujtahid. And people said no. Doors of ijtihad are closed. You cannot be a mujtahid al-mutlaq now. Which means that intellectually the Muslim Ummah died the day Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal died. At that time we all died intellectually. Does it make sense? The times change, situation changes, new things come, but we cannot do any ijtihad mutlaq because the 4 imams have died. Doesn't make sense. So one thing is to go back to the day Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal died and say we will recreate, we will go back. I'm not talking about the ibadah. I'm not saying that instead of praying Friday on Friday, we pray it on Sunday or some other day. Or we change the timings of the prayers. No, we are talking about how we deal with each other, how we deal with the rest of the world. This is where we are lacking. And we need to go back to look at the topic of mu'amalat, al-fiqhul mu'amalat, and say that books are not closed. We need to go forward. If a new technology becomes available, we should be using it. There has to be some collaboration between the scholars of religion and the specialists in other sciences, because the scholars are not always scientists. One of the issues that is coming up now is, should DNA evidence be acceptable in the case of rape? And this Islamic ideology council from Pakistan said no. But that statement needs to be looked at carefully, and I think they may be right. But they are saying it cannot be used as a primary evidence because Quran and Sharia gives us the tools to do that. But it can be used as a secondary or supporting evidence. They do not lay out the procedure of how that should be done. But this is an important point which they are making. And it's up to the Muslim scholars and the scientists now to define the scope of DNA science and see how can we use it. Because hundreds of women in Pakistan are in the jails right now. They were raped, but they cannot produce 4 witnesses. So instead of accepting their testimony they were raped, they are accused of adultery and put into jails where the jail people rape them again and again. Something needs to be done about that. A statement is good. It will be secondary in and supporting evidence, then use it. Don't just keep it on the textbook. That's one thing. The second thing, and there is a report from India looking at the Muslims, who may be the second or the third largest community in India, lowest literacy rate among Muslims in India, especially Muslim women. 59% of Muslims are educated, 50% of Muslim women are educated, 70% of Muslim women do not want their daughters educated beyond primary grade. 70 years ago, my grandmother had the same feeling that my mother, after she learned how to read Quran without understanding, that's good enough education for the girl. No more education. Why in this day and age? When was the last time a sister in our community was on the board of ICW or WIC? When was the last time a sister came here and gave a lecture on a Friday or other day? Are they inferior? Don't they know anything? Do they have no right to learn or teach about religion? Women used to sit in the masajid and give diplomas. Nafisa gave diploma to Imam Ash-Shafi'i. He learned from her. Imam Ash-Shafi'i died, Nafisa was still alive. So she said that before you bury him, bring his body to my door. When they brought, she cried and she made dua and she said, when you were alive, you used to come to me. When you are dead, you are being seen off from my door. Up until 200 years ago, there used to be women mujtahidat in the Arab world. Where have we gone? Don't we realize that 2.8 billion people in this world are women? About 50% of Muslim population consists of women. And what are we doing for them? We cannot change the world, but we can do something in this community to bring our children from sitting right in that darkened room to forward one more row over here and encourage a Muslim sister to learn religion and give us a talk here. What's wrong? I'm not saying give a Friday khutbah or lead the prayers. No, that's no. But there are other things in which they can contribute. On how many committees in this masjid are women? I can tell about ICW, none, except for the Sunday school. I don't know about this here. But why not? What's wrong with it? If you think that a man's iman will shake by looking at a woman, then kick that man out of here. His iman should be strong. The Prophet ﷺ used to send Umar radiallahu ta'ala to women in their houses to teach. Why did Umar's iman not go away? He used to go in their houses and teach them. The women said of Allah's Rasul ﷺ, men have overtaken us. Could you appoint one day on which you will teach us? And he did that. We have to analyze in a very objective and unemotional method, methodologically looking at what went wrong in the Muslim Ummah. Where are we going wrong? You know, if you find out that there is a fault in a ship, but you build the second ship the same way as you built the first one, the fault will still stay the same. We need to change our thinking, we need to change our methodology, our ideology. And one of the ways in which we can start in our community is please educate your women. Try that some of them do masters and PhD in Islamic studies. And there are other, Fawaqih program and Bayana program and what other programs are there. Those are good enough, but not good enough. They need something more than that, broader than that. Muslim women need to learn the religion and then do Islamic financing. That's important. We have done one thing wonderful, that at least most of our teachers are women. But why should they teach only children? Why shouldn't they come here and teach Salim Kalani and Hussain Faraj and Khalid Abdul Qadir? They're good enough to do that as well. There should be no shame in accepting and acknowledging them. I've had more things to say, but I want to say one thing about the forgiveness and forgiving and forgetting. It's the issue that if somebody has killed a Muslim, is there tawbah for him or not? And this ties in with somebody who killed non-Muslims, and should he even be buried or not? That was an issue. And who stood up? We all know that. And Ibn Abbas was asked this question. Somebody came and said, is there tawbah for me if I kill somebody? He said, no, there is no tawbah. Man qatala mu'minan amadan We know the ayah. His jaza is فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ خَالِدًا فِيهِ. After that person has left, the students of Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu told him, this is not your usual fatwa, because you told us that there is tawbah for everything. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. Allah does not forgive shirk, but He forgives everything else. And Ibn Abbas answered, very, very intelligent answer. I said, I saw the signs of anger on this person's face. He wanted to kill somebody. If I told him that there is tawbah for you, he will go and kill and then make tawbah. So I wanted to stop him from doing that by saying, no, you cannot do this. But yes, majority of scholars actually have given this fatwa that even if a Muslim has killed a Muslim, if he makes a sincere tawbah, asa rabbukum an yatuba alaykum. How Allah will deal with him is up to him. We all know that very famous story where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that a person had killed 99 people and he asked somebody, is there tawbah for me? The scholar said, no, there is no tawbah, I killed him. But then he goes to another scholar and says, yes, there is tawbah, but you have to do something. You have to move away from bad company. So again, we cannot deny anybody the tawbah, the benefit of doubt, the benefit of tawbah. But we all have to learn. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.